Professor Marcel Rominger. Welcome to Module 7. In this video, we are going to be talking about triads. Okay, triads are these. Okay, so most of you know triads as chords. So you might be talking about chords or you might be talking about harmony. But triads are something that we're going to talk a lot about from now until the end of the course. So let's talk a little bit about what is triads.
Okay, so let's talk about triads. All right, now before we go on, please make sure that you review scales and intervals before proceeding with this video. Okay, now if you feel like you are completely confused about scales and intervals, then we need you to be well versed in scales and intervals before we proceed. So please review that, make sure you have a good working understanding of that, and then I think you'll be able to understand what we're going to be talking about in this video, because we're going to be using definitely using scales and intervals for triads. Okay, so what is a triad? Well, a triad is three notes played simultaneously and usually within intervals of a third. When we start talking about triads, this is we start diving into things like chords and harmony. So triad is kind of like a form of chord. And the sound that is produced from the triad is known as harmony. So this is where we're kind of getting into the subject of harmony. Okay, so here's a whole bunch of triads just bouncing around on the staff. So this is what it looks like when these triads are stacked into thirds. So for instance, take a look at this guy. All right, so we might see something like this in a score. Okay, but we can't work with this right now. We can't. That's not going to do us any good. If the notes are stacked this way, we can't identify the triad. We don't know what it is. We really are kind of at a loss. So the first thing you have to do is take that triad and you got to stack it into thirds. All right. When you stack it into thirds, then we can better understand what's actually being produced here. All right, now we take a look at the bottom note. Now the bottom note is like the main note of the triad, also known as the root. All right, so if we take a look at our old example, so we used this example in a previous video, if you look carefully, well, then you'll be able to identify the triad that is being used here in the left hand. So how are triads constructed? All right, so how do we build these things, or how are they constructed basically? Well, here's a major triad. So how do we construct a major triad? Well, you take the bottom two notes need to be a major third apart. All right, so that's in the interval of a major third. Then the top two notes are in the interval of a minor third. From the bottom notes to the top note, that is the interval of a perfect fifth. So if you have all these things, then you definitely have a major triad. Okay, then we take a look at the root, and the root tells us the name of the triad. So since we have G in the root, then we can say that this is a G major triad. Okay, now what if we sort of fool around with these intervals a little bit? So what if we put the minor third on the bottom? So the first two notes, the bottom two notes are a minor third, which means that we're kind of switching it. So the top two notes are now the major third. Okay, so if we do that, we still have our perfect fifth from the bottom note to the top note, and this makes a G minor triad. Over here, we've got the bottom two notes, which are a minor third. But what if over here, the top two notes are also a minor third? Well, then we don't have a perfect fifth for our bottom note and our top note anymore. Okay, so we now have diminished fifth from the bottom note to the top. So this creates a G diminished triad. Notice that these are all called G. The root did not change. Okay, so this is all still based on the note G. Okay, so if we're going to have two minor intervals, what if we have two major intervals? So the bottom two notes are a major third. The top two notes are a major third. So this changes our bottom note to top note interval, so it's now augmented. We have an augmented fifth from the root to the top note. So this creates a G augmented triad. Okay, so how do we identify these triads based on key? Now remember, whenever we're talking about key, we're kind of talking about scales. All right, so based on scales. So let's take a C major scale here. Here's a C major scale. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stack triads on top of each one of these notes. So boom, there we go. Now we've got triads um, built on top of every note of the C major scale. Okay. Here are my scale degrees. Okay, I didn't do the octave because I thought that was kind of repetitive. But now I'm going to take those scale degrees, I'm going to turn them into Roman numerals. Now, if you look really carefully, you'll see that some of these Roman numerals are uppercase and some of these Roman numerals are lowercase. Okay, so the uppercase Roman numerals, which are right over here, 1, 4, and 5, those are the major triads, or those signify major triads. The 2, 3, and 6 are lowercase Roman numerals, and those signify minor triads. Then we have this, what looks like a minor triad, but with a little circle next to it. That is identified as a diminished triad. So remember, diminished triad is a minor third with another minor third. Okay, so that was the C major scale. But what if I switch to A minor? All right, so I switched to the relative minor of C major. Now, when I switch to minor, then the triads are going to be rather different. Okay, so here are the triads based on the A minor scale, natural A minor. Here are my scale degrees. Yeah, switch them to Roman numerals. Now, if you notice, all the majors became minor and all the minors became majors, and even my my diminished triad is now in a different place. Okay, so here's the minor triads. 1, 4, and 5 are now minor. 3, 6, and 7 are now major. And here's my diminished triad. It's now based on the second scale degree rather than the seventh. Okay, so remember our old example here. So here's the triad. Now, if I had to put a Roman numeral to that, how would I do that? Okay, well, first I got to identify what key we're in. I take a look at my key signature. I see I have 1 sharp. So if I have 1 sharp, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that that's probably just the key of G major. All right, so looks like G major. Let's just say it's G major. Okay. All right, so if I'm in the key of G major, and I have a triad that's based on G, well, of course, that is going to be Roman numeral 1. All right, so that is the number 1. So the fact also that it's uppercase tells me that this is a major triad, as in all Roman numeral 1s in major will always be major, will always be uppercase and major. Okay, let's take a look at this example. Okay, so I'm going to do the same exact thing. Here's my key signature. I see 1 flat. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that this is, well, let's say this is in the key of F major. Okay, so if this is in the key of F major, I look at my root, which is C. So I'm just going to quickly think, okay, if I'm in the key of F major scale, where's the C in that scale? Oh, okay, it's the 5th scale degree. So, of course, this is the 5 chord, or Roman numeral 5, in the key of F major. But hold on a second. Remember, that key signature doesn't necessarily mean I'm in F major. It could also mean that I'm in D minor. So if I'm in the key of D minor, which has the same key signature as F major, well, I do the same exact thing. I take a look at the root of that triad, think of the D minor scale, and say, oh, okay, well, that is the 7th, based on the 7th scale degree. And that's how I get my answer that in the key of D minor, this is a 7 chord.
All right, so here's a couple of helpful hints when you are studying triads. So what I recommend, first things first, is study or practice writing them out. So the great thing about triads is that you just stack them into thirds like this. So stack them into thirds this way, and you can start on almost any single note So you get used to 3 lines, 3 spaces. Here's another one with 3 spaces. But get used to writing them this way. So obviously this is not the whole story, but you get used to seeing the triads this way and writing them this way, and this is going to help you later on when we study sevenths. Okay? The next thing I recommend is when you're studying functional triads, sort of a triad within a key signature, take a look at the key signature first. So for example, if I were to take a look at this key signature, and we see this triad. So you take a look at the key signature and you take a look at the triad. Okay, so start with the key signature first. That's a very good hint. And put yourself in that scale, in that key. So here I am writing out the key that is 1 sharp. So I start with the major scale. Alright, so I realized that, okay, this could be G major with the 1 sharp. I wrote out a G major scale, and there is this triad which starts, of course, on G, which leads me to the first, based on the first scale degree, so then this gets a Roman numeral 1. Okay, so always start with the key signature and then figure out where this is in the key signature, all right? And if you need to write out a scale, that is also a really good helpful hint. Make sure that you're always writing out these scales so that you get a better understanding of where these triads are and how you should label them with the Roman numerals. Okay, now it's time for a quick check. All right, this is where I give you something to figure out. You pause the video, try to figure it out, and see how well you do. Okay, so, and please note the clef. What is the Roman numeral of this chord? So pause the video, see if you can figure it out, and when you think you have the answer, unpause. Did you figure it out? Okay, if you did, if you said that this is Roman numeral 5, good job, then you figured it out, okay? So if not, let's talk about how I got this answer. So first things first, remember in the helpful hints I told you to take a look at that key signature, all right? So we know that this could be a major key or its relative minor, all right? So let's say it's the relative major, all right? So let's write out the scale. So here is my B flat major scale. Alright, here it is. So it's a B flat major scale. I know it's B flat and E flat is in there, but it's in the key signature, so I don't have to worry about it. And then I take a look at it and say, okay, what is this chord based on? So I just got to slide over to this note, and we put Roman numerals under each one of these. Alright, and I actually don't have to go farther than that because I've already run into my chord. And we realize that this is the 5 in B flat major. Okay, now if I had said, well, this is G minor, then this would be a different Roman numeral. Okay, then it would be on a different part of the scale. Okay, but, and I probably should have given you some more context, but if you said just based on the major key and you said 5, then you are correct. All right. If you would have said 7, thinking that it was minor, that is also correct. But this is what I'm looking for in terms of figuring this out. Okay. Did you get it? If you got it, great. If not, keep practicing so you can practice labeling those chords with Roman numerals. Good luck.